Well, you know what? I got to tell you, Daniel, we had on off the top of the show former World Cup winning coach of USA, Tony DiCecco, and he was praising Canada with the youngsters they have in that lineup to watch out that this could be a nation that could win a World Cup or a gold very, very soon. That's a high praise from a real good coach. Talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, things have changed quite a bit in the last 4 years since Canada was at London and got that bronze medal. At that time, it was a squad that John Herdman had inherited from the program after he had come in as coach the previous year. A lot of those players that were on that team are no longer in the program, and in the 4 years since then, he's been able to bring in some new players up from the youth ranks, and also get even the existing veteran players buying into a system, buying into a style that they take from one game to the next and one tournament to the next. And I think that when you look at the roster, you look at the fact that Canada, in that quarterfinal against France, they ran out, 5 under 23 players. You look at the ages and the resumes of some of the players that are part of the system as it is now. The fact that they beat Germany for the first time ever. I mean, it was a group stage game. Neither team was necessarily at full strength, but beating Germany in any situation in soccer, on the men's or women's side, is no small feat. And so I think that players and fans are right to be upset at this point. It's never great for the team to lose, and I know that a lot of people may have had their sights set on that gold medal, especially given the way that Canada did start the tournament. But I think when you look at where this program has come from, where it's at now, and where it's headed with some of these young players that are coming up, I think there definitely is reason for optimism.
So let's talk about some of that optimism. Let's not talk about that loss, and let's move forward. And to me, the optimism comes from Becky. Here's a player I believe is going to provide the goal scoring we will miss once Sinclair decides to hang him up. This is a player that even Tony DiCecco spoke about. This is a player that couldn't make the under-20 USA team. This is a player that's on a mission. I like this player a lot, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I think it's been good the way that she's been introduced into the program, just in the sense that people have gotten a chance to kind of see what she's got and see how she performs at this level. I'm very happy that I have not yet seen anyone declare her as, quote, the next Christine Sinclair, because I'm always afraid to see anybody given that title because the game has changed. I believe there will never be another player for any nation. There will never be another Christine Sinclair because, there's more parity in the global game. The talent is more spread out. We're no longer going to be able to see players that can go in and just physically dominate and beat players in the way that Christine Sinclair or Abby Wambach have in the past. Becky fits into that. She's got the speed, and I think what she's got more so than probably any other striker that's been in the program in the past few years, except for Sinclair herself, is that she's got that finishing touch. When she gets in front of net, you can tell that she knows what she's going to do with the ball. And we've seen some players on the team that, in past years that didn't have that skill to the same extent. I mean, people will look at the game against Germany. She had 2 great chances, didn't convert on either of those, but she's a 21-year-old player. She's going to learn from the experience, and I think that if people have the right expectations, if they look at it, as you just said, Anthony, as a player who's going to come in and take over some of the pressure from Sinclair in the years ahead, then she can work within those expectations, and I think she's definitely going to be a big part of this team for a long time.
Daniel, before we let you go, what I took away from this tourney, what I learned, what I believed that is so important for the success of the national team moving forward is more League One Ontario women's leagues, whether it's in BC, Quebec, Alberta. Maybe one day we can dream and have a professional women's league in Canada coast to coast. But I believe this is important, along with more and more young ladies going off to play NCAA and some of them off to Scandinavia. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, I spoke a second ago about there being more and more parity in the women's game, and we're starting to see it, and I think that that's what makes what you just said, Anthony, so important. We talk about it at length on the men's side, but the same situation exists on the women's side in that the players that are in our player pool need to have opportunities to play at a high level so that they can be ready for national team duty. I mean, I actually, I was listening to audio of a press conference from down in Rio. It was after one of the early games, and a Brazilian reporter was asking Melissa Tancredi, saying that, it must be great up in Canada where you have a league, and down in Brazil we don't have a league for women. And Tancredi had to kind of sidestep the question because, people must look at what Canada's done and say, well, they must have a women, but we don't at this point have that established. We've got League One Ontario, we've got high performance leagues in Quebec, potentially adding a women's division in the future, and our players need to have more and more opportunities like this, whether it's in the high performance leagues, whether it's Canadian teams in NWSL, or whether it's making connections with club teams abroad in Europe, because the rest of the world and the rest of the region is catching up to us, and so we definitely can't afford to be complacent and say, well, we've got a handful of promising youngsters right now, and that'll set us up for the next decade. These players will be important, but they need to be supplemented by more and more players coming through the system, getting these development opportunities so that we can actually build on this momentum that the team has been able to get in the past 5 years rather than staying stagnant.
Daniel, great of you to make time to join us. We really appreciate it. Something tells me I'll be calling upon you in a couple weeks' time as well, as the big two matches are coming up. Honduras already releasing their lineup. No surprise there, Daniel, but I'm looking forward to these two games like I've never looked forward to a couple Canadian games in a long, long time. I'm ready. I'm pumped. I'm excited. And something tells me that it's going to be different this time around than it was once that horror story took place down there in Honduras. Daniel, thank you so much again. Where can people follow you on Twitter, and what are you writing right now?
Well, folks can find me on Twitter at Daniel Squizzato. I hope you'll tweet out my handle, because the name is a bit of a tough one to spell. I've been covering the women's team for MLSsoccer.com as I usually cover the men's team. I'll get back into men's team coverage in a couple weeks' time. I've also been doing some writing about the women's team and some other sports over at Olympic.ca, which is the Canadian Team Canada website, so folks can check that out as well.